let you know all the little tears gon' come and go. Baby, just gotta make up your mind that every little thing's gonna be alright.
Hello beautiful people, welcome back to my channel. Today I am going to be ranking all of the Blackpool Pleasure Beach roller coasters. This is just my opinion, this is the list that I've come up with. This is just from best to worst in my opinion. A lot of you won't agree with this, and I'm sure a lot of you will have completely different opinions to me, but that is just the way it is, that is the way that life is. Everyone has different opinions and I think we need to be respectful of that, so please don't go like hating me in the comments, because this is just what I like, this is just my opinion, this is just what I think. If you're new here, hi, my name is Zoe, welcome to my channel, hit that subscribe button. I upload twice a week. I did take a 1 week break because I've just, I'm not doing great at the moment, so I feel like I just needed to take a bit of a step back from YouTube. It's not because of YouTube, I just, I need to be in the right mindset to film a YouTube video, and I'm still not great, but I am kind of better, and I feel like doing a YouTube video today, and you know, I want to keep uploading and keep it going, especially since we're still sort of stuck in lockdown kind of, and I love doing videos and it actually takes my mind off everything and it's a good distraction. So yeah, I'm back, hello. So yeah, I don't know where I was going with that. Please do ignore the mess in the background. I completely forgot to tidy that up before I switched on the camera, so please just try and ignore that. Okay, let's get into this video because I feel like I'm just rambling on like utter shit right now. So if you guys don't know, then Blackpool Pleasure Beach is my home, it's my favourite park, it's my favourite place on this entire planet. So the number one coaster on this list, and the coaster that I think is the best one at Pleasure Beach, is the big one. I feel like there is a lot of debate around whether people prefer Icon or people prefer the big one, and which one should be number one, but for me it is definitely the big one. I did kind of go through a phase when Icon first opened, for about, I'd say 9 months. I feel like I was definitely all for Icon over the big one. I mean, I still loved the big one and it still had a very special place in my heart, but I think because Icon was just, you know, it was quite new, it was quite fresh, it had only just opened. I think I definitely put Icon over the big one, but now, my laptop's just gone off, but now I have come to the conclusion that I do prefer the big one. Don't really know why, to be fair. I think just because the big one was my first big coaster, it was my first big coaster that I did at Pleasure Beach. It just holds that very special place in my heart, and I don't know, I just love it. I love how tall it is, I love the speed, I love the first drop. I've done it 100 times, which I'm so proud of, which I know doesn't really sound like a lot, because I know people have done it over 1,000 times, but for someone who doesn't really get to go that often, I do go often, but you know, someone who doesn't get to go every weekend and whatever, I think doing it 100 times is a pretty good achievement. And yeah, I don't even know what it is about the big one, it just holds that very special place in my heart, and it always will. And I think no matter how many theme parks I go to, no matter how many rides I ride, I feel like the big one will always be my number one. It will always be my baby. I'll always put her first over anything, and yeah, I don't know, I just love it. I know a lot of people say that it's rough, but I'm honestly I don't understand why people are saying it's rough, because I don't find it rough at all. It might be a little bit jolty in some places, but rough I really don't think it is, but that's just from personal experience. Obviously everyone experiences it differently, and everyone has a different ride every time they go on it and whatever, and like I said at the beginning of the video, we all have different opinions, which is fine. I just for me it's not rough at all. The back row is definitely my absolute favourite. I definitely prefer the back over the front. I feel like the front can be not boring, but it is a lot slower on the front than it is compared to the back, so I definitely prefer the very back row. The very last seat, it is insane, especially over that first drop. You get like dragged along with the rest of the train and you get thrown over that first drop, which I love. I love the thrill, I love the adrenaline, I love the speed, and I just think it's great. Nighttime rides on the big one is where it's at, honestly. You can slag off the big one all you like, but you can't sit there and say that it is not a good ride at night time, because she is flying around the track, especially when the illuminations are on. You get insane views on the lift hill, and it's just so great. I can't express how much I love the big one and how great I think it is, and yeah, I just really love the big one. The second coaster is Icon. Obviously, I couldn't really put Icon anywhere else, I don't think. Again, I feel like even though the big one is number one for me, I still have the same amount of love for Icon, and it still does hold that very special place in my heart. Like, the big one and Icon, they are just like my two babies. I feel like they're my two children. I love them both to pieces, and yeah, I don't know, I just love them both. So Icon is number two. I definitely prefer the second half of Icon. Like, I do love the first half. Like, I think going over that top hat is, like, sometimes if you get a fast train and it's been like warming up all day, going over that top hat is insane, and you get really good airtime. I love the launches, I love that first inversion, like, it's so nice. But the second half I just prefer so much more than the first half. I know, again, there's a lot of debate as to whether people prefer the first half or the second half, and there's also a massive debate around whether the Immelman is an inversion or not. Personally, I do think it is an inversion, because especially if you're on the back row, you get so much hang time and you can literally see the big one like upside down, and if you're upside down, it's an inversion. So I don't really understand why that is such a big debate, because like, you do go upside down, especially on the back row, but you know, apparently it is a debate, so we're just gonna go with it. But yeah, the second launch is so much faster than the first one. I love the fact that it just picks up that speed again. The Immelman is definitely my favourite part on Icon, especially on the back row. Like, that hang time you get is so nice. Yeah, I don't know, I just love Icon. Again, I love the speed, I love the airtime. I've never really been that bothered about airtime on like other roller coasters, but I think Icon is slowly making me love airtime a little bit more, and it's kind of making me want to have airtime on other coasters as well. Again, that's another thing people don't like about the big one, is the fact it has no airtime, but honestly, like, I'm really not bothered about that on the big one. I think if Icon didn't have airtime, then it would feel a little bit strange, but yeah, I don't know, I just really love the airtime on Icon. I love both inversions, I think they're great. I love how smooth it is. Again, back row is definitely where it's at. Front row is still really good, and you still can actually get a really fast ride on the very front row, especially if you go on it like later on in the day and it's been warming up all day. Then you go on the very front row, you get just absolutely thrown over that top hat. I remember on opening weekend this year, me and my dad went on it. I think it was like mid-afternoon, and we got a very front row ride, and we just got thrown over that top hat so quickly, and we got so much airtime and so much like force as well. It was insane, and we just weren't expecting it at all. And yeah, it's just great. So yeah, Icon is number two. Number three on my list is Revolution. I had to really sit down and think about this, because I didn't know whether to put Infusion third or Revolution third, but I decided on Revolution because I do think that I do prefer Revolution over Infusion. I love heights, and I love being up high, and I love getting like views of Blackpool and views of Pleasure Beach, and that is one thing I love about Revolution, is the queue line, because yes, it is a lot of stairs and you can get pretty worn out, but it is definitely worth it, because the views you get from the top are so nice. You can get some amazing pictures, amazing video footage. Again, at night time it is stunning because Pleasure Beach at night time is just absolutely gorgeous. It looks so pretty, and the Revolution queue line can be a bit scary if it's a really windy day, because the whole like platform shakes and it feels like it's literally just going to crumble down, but it won't. It's been there for years and it hasn't come down yet, so I don't think it ever will. But yeah, it is like, I love the queue line. I think it's great. I find it a bit weird that I'm like talking about a queue line and I'm expressing so much love just for a queue line, but I don't know, I just really like it. I have definitely had my sort of ups and downs with Revolution. I've definitely had a love-hate relationship with it in the past, but now I've come to love it and I think it's a great coaster. When I first went on it in 2017, I hated it, and I'm sure if you've watched my videos for a long time you all know that because I've mentioned it so many times. But yeah, I just hated it. I hated how intense it was. I hated the backwards bit. It was mainly just the backwards bit that I just didn't like, because I'd never been on anything like that before Revolution, and I told myself I'm never ever doing Revolution ever again, until in 2018 my dad wanted to go on Revolution because he'd never done it before. So we went on Revolution, absolutely terrified. The ride did its thing and we came off and we were like, should we do it again? Because we went in September on school days, so it was like super quiet and everything was walk on, and we just ran straight round and we did it again. Like, I don't know what it was, we just fell in love with it. Something just clicked and it made us love Revolution, and ever since that day I don't think I've ever had a bad ride on Revolution. And the more I go on Revolution, the more I just love it. Like, it's weird because I love everything that I used to hate about it. Like, I love the fact that it's so intense. I love the backwards bit. I love the fact that it scares me. Like, it still scares me, and every time I sit down I get like butterflies in my stomach. So my battery just died, so if the angle or lighting or anything has changed then I apologise. I feel like it needs to be a bit more, like a tiny bit that way. There we go, that'll do. I don't like messing around with it too much, so I can never get it back to like how it originally was. So in fourth place is Infusion, and I know a lot of you are going to be screaming at me like, Zoe, what are you doing? Not Revolution, Infusion. Why on earth is it fourth place? Why on earth is it above Grand National, Big Dipper, Avalanche, whatever? Like, why is it so high in your rankings? And the reason is because I love Infusion. I think it's great. I feel like, again, deserves a lot more love and a lot more appreciation. It gets so slagged off. Nothing irritates me more when people just sit there and they slag off oh, why do I keep saying Revolution? Infusion. And again, I know people have opinions, but it really does bug me because I feel like a lot of people just hate on Infusion because it's like a trendy thing to do, and it's like, if you actually admit that you like Infusion, you're going to get so much hate for it. So people don't actually admit that they like it. Obviously that's not going to be the case for everyone, and there are people out there that genuinely just don't like Infusion, which is fine. And like, to be honest, I do get it, like I really do. SLCs aren't for everyone, but honestly I love SLCs. I think they're great. It's like my mission in life to get on as many SLCs around the world as possible. I just love them. I think they're great. I think they're a lot more exciting than B&M inverts. I just find them a lot more thrilling. It gets my adrenaline going. Again, it scares me. Like, Infusion scares me. Like, every time I go on Infusion and I sit down and my restraint is down, we start going on that lift tour, I'm just like, what on earth am I doing? And like, I low-key want to get off, but then we start going and I remember why I love Infusion so much, even if it does still kind of scare me, and it actually is one of the scariest rides I think I've ever done. If you sit on the very front row of Infusion, that is definitely the smoothest place to sit. You will get such a smooth ride. It might not be as fast, and you might not get the same sort of adrenaline rush as you'd get on the very back row, but if you prefer smoothness over speed and, like, you know, just adrenaline, then definitely go for the front. But again, I just prefer the back. I am such a back row like whore. Like, I don't know, I think the back row on any coaster I just find so much better than the very front row. Off ride, it looks absolutely beautiful to look at. Again, that's another reason why I love SLCs, is they are so satisfying to just watch off ride. Like, they're so pretty to look at. In 5th place we have the Big Dipper. Big Dipper, a classic woody. I know, again, there's so much debate around these roller coasters. There's a lot of debate, like, oh, should Big Dipper be RMC'd? Should it be just completely removed? Some people love it, some people hate it, some people find it rough, some people find it smooth. Like, there's so much debate, and it's a very controversial ride. But honestly, I love Big Dipper. I think it's great. Definitely prefer it over Grand National. Again, I do kind of go through phases where I'm like, do I prefer Grand National or do I prefer Big Dipper? But I think now I've fully sort of sat down and I've thought about it, I think I definitely prefer Big Dipper, especially after opening weekend this year. The way that Grand National was running, I would definitely take Big Dipper any day over the Grand National. My favourite seat on the Big Dipper is, like, go to the very back row, like on that back carriage, but the seat, like the seat just before the very back row. I don't know how to word that, but it's that seat basically. It's the one just before the very back row. The reason that I don't like well, it's not that I don't like the very back row, I just prefer the seat in front of it, because it's on a non-wheel, so it's so much smoother. I think that's like the only reason, really. That's the only difference between those two seats, is the fact that the very back row is a wheel seat and the one in front of it isn't a wheel seat, so you're gonna get a much smoother ride and just a much more enjoyable experience overall. I love the views that you get on Big Dipper. I think they are so stunning, again at night time especially. They are so pretty. If you look far enough, like straight in front of you, you can see all over Blackpool, you can see the tower, you can see all of the piers, and again, you just get great views across Pleasure Beach as well. I think it's just great, especially when Infusion and Icon are going, and possibly Big One as well. When all of those rides are all going, or even if just one of them is going, like, it's so nice to just like sit on Big Dipper's lift hill and just like watch those rides going, especially Infusion, because it's such a nice ride to look at. Like, it's visually pleasing, so it's a really nice ride to look at. So I think when you're going on Big Dipper and you see Infusion going, like, I don't know, it's just nice. I would not like to see Big Dipper get RMC'd. I just watched a Pleasure Beach Experience video, and they were saying, like, I haven't even thought about this myself, but they were saying the fact that if they did like RMC Big Dipper, you know, we need to think about the things like PB Express would be closed, Infusion would be closed, possibly Big One could be closed, Steeplechase closed. Like, so many different rides surrounding Big Dipper would have to be closed. They have to be able to have the budget to RMC it. You know, there's just so many like factors that people don't think about. They just, as soon as they have like a bad experience on Big Dipper, one bad ride on Big Dipper, and like they are instantly like, RMC it, it's a really bad coaster, it's so rough, it's getting so old, RMC it. But they don't think about the other sort of factors that go into that. So yeah, again, Big Dipper, you get a different experience every single time you go on it. You're not going to get the same experience. Like, say if you went on it once and then you go around again straight after, you're going to get such a different experience. In 6th place is Nickelodeon Streak, and again, I had to really sort of think about, do I prefer Grand National or do I prefer Nickelodeon Streak? And before opening weekend this year, definitely I did prefer Grand National, because it is a lot more thrilling and it's a lot more exciting than Nickelodeon Streak. But the way that Grand National was running, like, it really wasn't great, and I'll go into that when I talk about Grand National later on. But definitely after opening weekend, I prefer Nickelodeon Streak. I don't know whether that's just because it was opening weekend, or it just was the way that Grand National is sort of aging. I don't know, but like, this could change like in a few months. Like, when I go back to Pleasure Beach and I ride Grand National, if I find it a better experience than sort of opening weekend this year, then I will definitely put Grand National over Nickelodeon Streak, but purely because of the experience I had on it on opening weekend this year, I definitely prefer Nickelodeon Streak. And I do just love Nickelodeon Streak as a general coaster. It's a really great family coaster, fits into Nickelodeon Land really well. I actually really love the colour orange. I don't know what it is about orange, I just really love it, especially in the summer. I think I love how sort of bright and vibrant it is, so I love the colour scheme. And Nickelodeon Streak is nowhere near as rough as Grand National. I feel like you don't get such a thrilling experience on Nickelodeon Streak, and you know, the drops aren't as steep and it's not as fast, but you can still really enjoy yourself on Nickelodeon Streak. And I mean, for saying it's meant to be a family coaster, it is really good. And when I first went on Nickelodeon Streak, I was petrified and I was honestly screaming my head off the whole way through. So you know, for a family coaster, I think it's really great. And I think when you first go on it, and if you're kind of scared of rides, then it can be quite a thrilling experience for you. And I think I definitely prefer, I know it sounds weird, but I prefer the smaller drops on Nickelodeon Streak than like the bigger drops. So you have like 3 sort of like big drops on Nickelodeon Streak, and then you go around this like corner, like past Revolution, and then you go into about, how many drops, like 4? You go into like 4 sort of small drops, and I actually prefer them than the bigger drops, because I feel like when you're going through those drops, it's like constant, it's like one after the other, and it's like constant speed, and that's what I like in a coaster. I love just constant speed. I don't sort of mind like slowing down and like here and there and whatever, and then picking up the speed again, but I definitely prefer a coaster that just has constant speed, if you get what I mean. And when you're going on those drops, like the speed like is constant and like consistent, and I feel like those drops are actually quite steep as well, and you get a little bit of air time. They're really fast. I feel like they're faster than the bigger drops. In 7th place is Grand National, and I feel like I have a very love-hate relationship with Grand National. Sometimes I really love it and I'm so like defensive of it, and then other times I don't, like, I wouldn't say I hate it, but it's definitely not one of my favourites, and I don't like it as much as like the other Woodies. And honestly, sometimes I actually prefer Blue Flyer over Grand National, and that's saying something, because Blue Flyer is like a tiny little wooden coaster. So yeah, but I am like, I don't know, I really don't know where I stand with Grand National, because the experience I had on it on opening weekend this year was not great. It was so squeaky, it was so slow. I honestly thought I was gonna stall at the top, and I honestly thought I was gonna have to get an evac off Revolution. Revolution! Why do I keep saying Revolution? Grand National. Which would have been great, because you know, an evac for an I'm sorry about my light, by the way, it's very annoying. An evac off like any ride is like great for an enthusiast, and I love anything like that. Sadly it didn't happen, but I did think that it was going to happen, because as soon as we got off that lift hill, we just went so ridiculously slow. I've never known Grand National to be like that. Again, it's kind of like Big Dipper. I go on it sometimes and I have such a great experience, I have such a great ride on it, and then other times I'll go on it and it will be the roughest thing I've ever done. I'll have a really bad experience on it, and yeah, I don't know, like I won't like it as much. I feel like Grand National is definitely starting to show her age a little bit now. I think she's starting to get a little bit tired. I would be really heartbroken to see it go, because again, it's like, it's a classic Woody, it's got that history about it, it's got that heritage to it, and I feel like Pleasure Beach definitely wouldn't be the same without Grand National. Do I think Grand National needs to be RMC'd? I'm really not sure. I mean, I've never ridden an RMC myself, so I wouldn't really class myself as like an RMC fanboy or anything like that. Well, fangirl in my case. And yeah, like I feel like I can't really judge a ride if I've never been on it, but if it makes Grand National a bit more enjoyable, then I think they should definitely go for it. And I feel like if they did RMC it, not a lot would have to close around it because it's kind of in its own area. It doesn't really affect any other rides, so I feel like it could be quite easy for them to RMC it. So the next roller coaster on my list is Avalanche, and I'm not gonna lie, I always forget that Avalanche exists. Every time I've kind of done like a Pleasure Beach video in the past, like a sit down chatty one, not like a vlog or anything, I always forget that Avalanche exists. And I actually did already film this video like 2 years ago, and I completely forgot to mention Avalanche. I just completely forgot to include it. That video is on private now, so don't go searching for it or anything. But yeah, I don't know, I always forget that Avalanche exists. I feel like I've been better recently because I have made more of an effort to actually remember that it is there and it is a ride at Pleasure Beach. But yeah, I just kind of always forget about it, and then I get to Pleasure Beach, I'm like, oh, let's go on Revolution, or past Revolution, and I'm just like, oh yeah, Avalanche is there. I don't know, I feel like I don't love Avalanche as much as I love all of the other coasters at Pleasure Beach. If they were just to get rid of Avalanche, I honestly don't think I'd care. I just find it a really short ride. I find it quite bland, I find it quite boring. It can be quite painful if my restraint is like really in tight. That can actually be really painful on my stomach, especially when you're sort of going around, you know, all of the bends and stuff. Like, it can be quite painful. It's not really a rough ride, and it is quite smooth. It's not like jolty or anything, but the restraint can hurt a little bit. Like, every time I go to Pleasure Beach, I'm always so excited to get back on the big one, Icon, Infusion, Revolution, whatever. And Avalanche, it just doesn't give me the same excitement, it doesn't give me that adrenaline, and sometimes the queue can be absolutely ridiculous. Just for like once you're off that lift hill, it's literally like 15-20 seconds, and I feel like a 20-minute queue honestly just isn't worth it, because it feels like it's just over just like that. Like, yes, you could debate that Revolution is also a really short ride, but I feel like I get more from Revolution and I get more of an experience from Revolution than I do with Avalanche. So yeah, like, I don't hate Avalanche, I just don't love it and I don't get excited by it. Okay, second to last coaster on my list is Blue Flyer. And again, I was kind of debating, do I prefer Blue Flyer over Avalanche? And now I'm thinking about it, and now what I've just said about Avalanche, I'm still quite like, I really don't know. Blue Flyer, like, it is really smooth, and you can sit on a wheel seat and it's not rough at all, and it's actually a really enjoyable ride. You know what, I actually think I do prefer Blue Flyer than Avalanche, you know. Okay, I'm going to switch that around. So just pretend that Blue Flyer and Avalanche are now switched over. So I prefer Blue Flyer than Avalanche. I think Blue Flyer, you can honestly have such a fun and enjoyable experience on Blue Flyer, no matter how old you are. I know that it is like a kid's ride and it is made for kids and whatever, but honestly, if you go on it with your like mates and stuff, you can literally have such a good time on it. Because it's a kids ride, it's quite funny to go on it as adults, and it's not rough, it's not like too bumpy or anything like that, it's not too fast, you know. It is just a kids ride. It's not going to be the most intense ride in the world, it's not going to have like high amounts of speed or anything like that, but it is just fun and it is quite enjoyable. And the final coaster in my list, I'm sure you all know what it is. It is Steeplechase, and again, I've had a very love-hate relationship with Steeplechase, but I think I've come to the conclusion that I don't hate it, but I definitely don't love it. I don't, like I said earlier, I don't really hate any of the rides at Pleasure Beach, but Steeplechase just, I think it needs to go. Like, it really does need to go. Like, it's just quite jolty and it's quite rough and it can be quite painful, and it actually is quite scary, and it scares me sort of not in a nice way. Like I said earlier, like Revolution and Infusion, they still scare me, but they scare me in like a good way, and it gives me that like adrenaline rush. And I think that's kind of what I enjoy about those coasters, is the fact that it scares me. But Steeplechase scares me on like another level. because it literally just feels like, even though I do have a seatbelt on, feels like I'm literally just gonna go flying off that horse. And some of like the turns we go, like I literally, like I go on Steeplechase and I see what's coming up ahead of me, and I'm literally like, oh my god, no, get me off, this corner is going to be so sharp, this bit is going to be so jolty, and it scares me a lot and I dread it a lot. But you know, it can be quite a fun ride, especially if you're racing someone else. Like it can be quite fun, but overall as a sort of ride experience, yeah, it's just not great. Like it really isn't that great. So those were my Pleasure Beach roller coasters ranked from best to worst. Please do let me know in the comments your best to worst coasters at Pleasure Beach. I want to see everyone's different opinions. Like I said earlier, this is just my opinion. This is just what I feel about these coasters. If you did enjoy this video, please do give it a thumbs up. I definitely want to do this with the flat rides at Pleasure Beach and also the Nickelodeon Land rides as well, so I will be definitely doing that soon. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Stay safe, stay well, and I will see you guys on Monday for a brand new video. Bye.